Thank you so much for coming on this afternoon. It's been a really busy show. We've been doing learning technologies for a number of years. This is sort of the second year we've been at the summer forum, and it's really grown from strength to strength. So that's great to see so many people here. Before I get started, I just wonder if you have a quick show of hands of how many people were in the keynote this morning. Is anybody? Oh, just a couple, right? Okay. Since going to the keynote, I went to the keynote myself. I've made a couple of changes to my slides, actually. One of the reasons being is one of the key themes here at the Learning Technology Summer Forum is about opening up learning. How we can get people to work collaboratively, how we can provide them with the learning that they need at the point in time in which they need it, but still on really rather complex subjects. And that's quite a dichotomy. It's quite difficult to get that balance right. And one of the ways in which I wanted to contextualize that for you, let's look at an application of how we can develop a really good learning scaffold and a great learning environment, but dealing with quite complex subjects, is looking at something like corporate MOOCs and online academies. But before I plow straight into this, does everybody know what a MOOC is? Lots of nods. Okay. No, okay. The acronym stands for Massive Open Online Course. But I'm going to be a little bit fast and loose in my interpretation of MOOC, because in a corporate setting, to be honest, you can kind of ignore the N. It could be as small and big as you want, but the concept is it's an online program, and you're providing a good learning scaffold by which people can learn about a complex subject, but come together, learn together, and find new insights. So really learning some of the lessons from some of the large academic institutions that have launched MOOCs over the last few years. What can we learn within our organisations? What lessons could we take away to deal with some of those more challenging subjects that we don't often tackle? Now, I work for an organisation called WillowDNA, and we specialise in complex subjects online, which is why something like corporate MOOCs, online academies, is kind of our home. But I want to give you a little bit of a background first of all in terms of the state of the nation. And the reason why I asked did you go to the keynote is it was very interesting talking about this real shift in learning culture, where people are going for their learning. You know, in the last few years there's been lots on 70-20-10. We know that people learn informally. But where does that leave L&D? Where does it leave what we give our people in within organisations, or as an accrediting body, or as a specialist training provider? What does formal learning look like now, and what's its purpose, what's it trying to achieve? Well, really, some of the things that are driving these changes are some of the predictions that we had a number of years ago, and they certainly seem to be coming and bearing fruit, is the almost total collapse of face-to-face only training. So I'm not saying collapse to face-to-face, but face-to-face only for any aspect of any development need that you may well have over the age of 18. It'd be interesting to see what happens for all our youngsters at school. That there is an expectation that's global, that's worldwide, that we could learn online for everything that we may ever possibly want to learn about, or at least there'll be something for us. It could be as informal as doing a Google search or going on Wikipedia. It could be a formal online degree from an academic institution. It could be somebody showing you how to strip an engine on a YouTube video. Could be an entire range of things, but I will be able to find something online for the subject that I'm trying to develop. That there will be an increasing prevalence of distance learning as a matter of choice for many reasons. I won't go into all the socioeconomic reasons why that's the case, but we know that that's certainly true for lots of different drivers around that. And that there'll be the availability of online learning resources for any subject. Now, when Willow started out, we started in 2005. We've always come from a background of knowledge management and more complex subjects, but they were kind of the untouchables in the online world. Where you started were health and safety and compliance. The tougher subjects or more substantive subjects like leadership, sales, etc., they didn't go online, they still stayed in the workshop. Well, actually, people expect to be able to get insights on all sorts of subjects. And the great thing about online compared to actually going to a workshop or face-to-face is that you can support somebody across their entire learning journey. So it's not about trying to wrap up all the lessons of developing our corporate strategy in an hour of e-learning. Of course it isn't. But it's about creating a learning journey that supports people through something that may take weeks or months. And how do we bring them back to that? And also, of course, the CPD, which by its very nature is continuous. Online gives us all sorts of great opportunities. And some of these logos you can see come up here, these are some of the organisations we work with. And what I'll do towards the end of the presentation is give you some case studies and food for thought about the way in which you can use our particular platform, Pathway, to support some of these complex subjects online. There's also the formalised appearance of degrees and apprenticeships within working settings. So there's a big push at the moment for more apprenticeships rather than necessarily having to go to university for a degree to get my qualification. I may want to do a professional apprenticeship. So apprenticeships not just in trades, but also in professions like accountancy, law, nursing, etc. But because of that, it also means that people want contextualised learning. The great thing about apprenticeships is it always demanded context, it always demands evidence. I'm going to do something in the environment that I'm in, and I'm going to share that with somebody and show that I'm learning while I'm working. Well, the same really could count for any programme, whether it be a degree or not. With MOOCs, with these open courses that universities are offering now, there's an opportunity for corporate organisations to start to develop their own degrees, their own MBAs, as it were, by taking some good academic content, good contextualised content they have from their organisations, and offering that up in a really good learning environment. So it's a very exciting time. And there's also, of course, we're talking about open learning, the increased appearance of people co-creating. So we're not the gatekeepers of learning, we are creating the right environment and springboards from which people can learn. So you're curating or creating really good formal learning, you're putting it in a really good online environment that's intuitive, that's easy to use, that people like to come back to, but you're enabling them to come together and form new ideas, either online or maybe offline, face-to-face. For those of you that know a little bit about MOOCs or maybe have taken one, Coursera this year have invested a massive amount of money in developing face-to-face learning hubs, and I think it's between 30 and 40 cities around the world, because people still want to come together in action learning sets to talk about what they're learning online. And they recognise that as one of the issues that Coursera wanted to address. So this isn't the end of face-to-face, and co-creation could happen online, it could happen offline, but it's creating the environment. This is what this is all about. So when you're talking about a complex subject or something that takes time to mastery, you need to chunk it up to make the learning more achievable, more accessible, to follow somebody over their time to mastery. You need an integrated approach to make that learning accessible. You can't just put it all in one modality. There will be points in the learning journey where I need you to tell me something actually. I need to be in the zone. I need to kind of get a grip of the subject. So in that circumstance, maybe some e-learning, maybe some interactive e-books, maybe some videos would be the right thing to do. But as I move forward, I'll want to be challenged more. I may want to do more assignments. I may want to co-create content with people. I might want discussions. So it's understanding what types of learning interventions will work over the entire journey. So by doing that, what I do is create a learning scaffold. So your learning management systems need to very easily be able to create a learning scaffold that's flexible, that can change as it needs to, and that your learners can contextualize for themselves. And enables you to very, very quickly add the voices of the company, the voices of experience, and essentially it's acting as a growing knowledge base. It doesn't stand still, it continually evolves. So in a moment, I'm going to show you what we do with our platform. But what I really wanted to do is kind of get you in the zone, create your learning scaffold for what do we mean by these MOOCs. And that's the kind of global view. But what about learning professionals? What are they thinking about at the moment? Well, the challenges that are facing the learning profession generally at the moment are, in order to have engagement online, it's not that online is new. Lots of organisations and accrediting bodies, etc., have been doing this for a number of years, but engagement is an issue. Getting people to feel like they're not isolated, that online learning isn't a second-class citizen. We're not doing it just to save money. We're not, because actually in lots of ways, online learning supports the learning cycle in a way that other modalities haven't been able to. But that doesn't mean you can just throw it out there and expect people to get on with it. Somebody's got to care about this. Somebody's got to be facilitating this. And because of that, I truly believe there isn't a better time to be in the learning profession, because now you can truly act as facilitators of learning, create really great learning scaffolds online and bring people together, make connections, go and gather new content, put people together that know about this subject that could create something new. It's really, really exciting. But that's your job, to care about it. Also, one of the things that came up in the keynote today was that there was a prediction. I used to work in knowledge management, and one of the key things around knowledge management was content will be king. We need to drive content out there. Rubbish. Context is king. You can have some great content, but if it's not in my context, if I don't recognize my reality in that these are the challenges I really have, it doesn't count. So good content is great as a springboard, but contextualizing it. And that's not hard. We're not talking high production values here. We're talking about some really good videos and good insights, people sharing their case studies, but bringing it alive. And learning professionals can help facilitate that. So you need a platform that will help you do that. And by that, you're creating that balance of some really good formal content that draws people in, but then enables them to go off-piste. Treat them as adults. If they still want to go off to Google, want to go off to Wikipedia, want to go off to YouTube, then brilliant, because if they've got some good content that they could curate and bring it back into your learning platform, that's the holy grail. That's exactly what you want. And it's also recognizing as well that time doesn't come for free. You can create lots and lots and lots of content, but even if your learning is there, it's open, it's free, everybody can use it whenever they want, their time doesn't come for free. So what you put on your platform has to really hit the mark. That's where that context piece comes back in. So make sure you're helping people spend their time wisely. And this is something that came up from David's keynote this morning, is a great word, disintermediation. That means that people don't need you, like I'm doing right now, to stand in front of you and tell you all about this subject. Everything that I've presented to you so far, you could go and find it online. So it's about me connecting peers to peers. I recognise some faces around the room, and I think, do you know, it'd be great if that person could have a conversation with that person, because I know they're trying to achieve the same thing. So your learning platform needs to be encouraging connections, encouraging conversation. So your formal learning, and we're talking about formal learning in the context of it being a MOOC or an online academy, is the springboard to creating those new insights and knowledge. So that's the view of learning professionals, as it were. So what can you do online now? Well, you've got some great opportunities for curation of stuff that you have already got. As much as everybody here, including us, would love you to come and spend some money on some new content, do you know what? You've probably already got some really great content you could repurpose if you just redesign it around a learning journey. So having a place where you can host that learning in a way that makes sense and curate what you've already got is a great opportunity. And also curate from those MOOCs that are out there from academic institutions, bring some of their content in. But there's also the opportunity for your people on your programs to create learning as well. So it's understanding where you invest in creating new stuff and where you curate stuff that you've already got. And when we're talking about curation, you want to be looking for learning because it's credible and it matters. When you're trying to retain good people, when you've got good talent, they want to be delivered learning that actually matters, that it's been sourced and curated from good institutions, from good people in our organisations, the true nitty-gritty lessons learned, not the utopia, what really happens around here, all the unwritten rules. That's really important when you're curating content for a MOOC or for an online academy. So what you need is your formal learning flexes and changes. It's not fed from the centre. So some things for learning professionals to think about. So you can repurpose what you've got. And I guarantee you've probably already got some really, really great content that with a little bit of tinkering could do some really good stuff if only you create it as a really good program that step by step takes somebody through their learning journey. The other real boon about thinking about your organisation launching its own MOOC or launching online academies is one of the things that holds organisations back from doing accredited programs on things like leadership, sales, complex subjects, is the accreditation headache. But I can tell you there are many academic institutions out there that have great MOOC content that you could repurpose and use that want you to use it. And it means it's much quicker to get content that your really good, talented people want to come back to again and again on your LMS. It comes from some really good subject matter experts, but you don't have to go through lengthy accreditation programs. You can use things like open badges. You can accredit yourselves. As long as people feel that the learning, go back to it again, is credible and it matters. That's what's important. So it's time for organisations, for them to redefine the MOOC. What does it mean for them? Well, when MOOCs were launched by a lot of universities, it's a great opportunity for them to market their subject matter expertise. One of the criticisms were, though, that they threw that content out there, they left people to it. So when I'm redefining a MOOC, when I'm working with my customers, when they want to launch a corporate MOOC or an academy, I get them to think about these things. Who's going to care? Who's going to facilitate this? Who is going to bring people back into this learning again and again? Because if you're talking about a subject that's going to take place over a period of time, people need to feel that this is a living, breathing entity, it's its own ecosystem. You need manageable cohorts. Massive is a problem. Massive is a problem. That's why Coursera are setting up these face-to-face learning hubs, so that people can come together and talk about it in a more intimate setting and something that's a little bit more intensive. A curated scaffold, that's what you're looking for. You don't have to have all of the answers. The answers will change from today to tomorrow. What you're enabling people to do is get a good grounding of a subject so that they can discover that for themselves. But that's where you are uncompromising in your learning design. You don't have to be gimmicky and bells and whistles on the content itself. It should be good, it should be clean, it should be well designed. Of course it should. But it's about actually having a really good learning scaffold. And you can get away with really quite short, sharp pieces of interactive learning. Don't have to spend huge amounts of money on massive gamified learning. So you're trying to support people over time. And what does that mean for the learner? Well, I'm going to tell you something that you probably all already know. Learners don't like LMSs. It's not their favourite thing. Don't really like them, don't really understand them. And normally it's because the LMS is there to serve a reporting function or to work with your HR systems. Whatever's on your LMS, whatever type of user interface you're creating, whatever type of environment, they need to be able to relate it to their reality. It's got to be related to their day-to-day job, but it's got to look like things they already use. It's got to look and feel like the web. It should be easy to edit, it should be easy to change. They don't want gimmicks. There are all sorts of ways in which we can navigate learning, go off here, go off there. I don't want that. I'm a busy professional. I want really credible learning and a good opportunity then to connect with other people in the organisation so I can do that great informal stuff. And I put together an LMS snag list. Some years ago, we built our own house. I'm used to snag lists, having to go around saying, don't like that, that's not right. And the LMS snag list for your learners, according to Brandon Hall, which was published a few months ago, was that most corporate LMSs are difficult to use. They don't feel very well, the actual customers, the organisations don't feel very well supported, that they don't realise the admin burden that they're taking on, that the appearance of it is woefully out of date, and it always feels a little bit like that in L&D, that we feel like sort of cobbler's children. We're trying to launch fantastic online learning, but the actual appearance of it feels like it's something on a DOS or a Spectrum. That it doesn't change and it's not able to flex to changing needs. We can put our stuff on there, but the learning doesn't evolve and doesn't change. That there's a lack of mobile features. And what does mobile mean? In my world, and I was listening to what Fuse were talking about and some good stuff actually from Epic earlier. We talk about mobile, we talk about companion content. Not making your LMS suddenly scale down to the size of an iPhone, but what companion content and how will I interact? What will I be doing on here? I'll be looking up stuff. I may want to very quickly contribute to a discussion board. I don't necessarily need the entire learning scaffold on my mobile. But in a nutshell, Brandon Hall from their research said that their organisations are saying that they were feeling they were paying far too much for systems that were too difficult to use and that were out of date. And that number one, above all function sets, above all tools and technology. The main thing was ease of use, no barriers, just something that I recognise that looks like the type of online world that I expect, that I'm used to. Now, if we go to MOOC platforms, anybody that's done anything on FutureLearn and Coursera, you know, they're actually relatively easy to use. They're not bad. But the problem with them is that there's no signposting. There's no metadata. When I go in and look at a resource, I kind of, so what's that resource going to tell me? Can I have a quick synopsis? Is it worth me going into that, or should I go and have a look at that? I don't really know. There's no context. It's kind of it's a very clean list of resources, but I don't get a sense of a journey, where I'm going, where it's taking me. If I compare that to open source platforms, some of those criticisms that came up from Brandon Hall with enterprise LMSs and open source were that sometimes they're quite confusing, that the user interface is quite dated. They might be free to download, but they're difficult to support and get them to flex. It really feels like you're kind of trying to force them to get to them to flex to our context. And in the end, does it meet the expectations of our current experience of the other online portals that you have? Think about your intranet, think about other things that you do. Does an open source platform sit with that, or is there a disconnect? And quite often with the user experience, there's quite a sharp sort of junction between the two. And is it credible? Do I feel like my organisation really do care about my learning and they're investing in it? It doesn't mean you have to invest lots of money, but have they given it some thought as to what's going to work for us around here? So I'm going to be blatant now, slight apologies for, I'm going to show you what I think works, because we developed something that we thought worked better. So Pathway, our LMS, the concept with this platform is to make learners satisfied. That's not to say we don't want to make learning professionals satisfied, but it's to create a good learning experience. So that's essentially what we're all about. The idea is that we can support anything from basic courses to complex certification. So that may include online exams, offline exams, getting CPD, getting open badges, getting certificates, but that it could flex to deal with some of those bigger, tougher subjects. That it looked like the types of experience that people already have on the web. So there's no uptime, you just go in there and it looks like everything that I already use. And that you didn't have to choose between an LMS and something else. So there's a better event management system out there. If there's a CRM you want to use, you've got something that will fit and flex with it. So I'm going to rush past some of these because I had to start a little bit later. We're talking about some of the integrations that I was going to talk about with you. What I want to get into actually is some of the case studies. This is what we do with our organisations. So with Telefonica, we looked at the flipped classroom. So this is an online academy, and the concept here was that you were studied online for knowledge and exposition. So I go into the subject itself, get what I need to know about this particular subject. This one's on performance coaching, but that I maximise face-to-face time with tailored focused support. I can only show you a little bit of this screen on Telefonica because that's all I can at the moment, but very kindly they've let me show you this. But what you're doing is creating formal learning that creates a scaffold, but that I have discussions and online presence where my learning cohort can start to work together, and when they go face-to-face, they have very intensive dialogue. They don't have to be taught what the GROW model of coaching is. They've done it already, and they've started to talk about some of the challenges that they've had implementing that with their team. When they go face-to-face, they meet with a professional coach that gives them very, very tailored support. So your coaches are giving almost one-to-one executive coaching for your teams, which is fantastic. With IPG Media Brands, we were wrapping around the concept of a community around our platform. So here they were dealing with a very complex subject. Here's Pathway again, with all my learning paths and my content and my discussions. There's some of the content that sits beneath it. But to get to Pathway, we integrated with Yammer, because Yammer was where all the subject matter experts were having all the funky conversations. This is where everything was happening. So you don't fight it, you integrate with it. If you've got good my background's in online communities, and if you've got good communities that are really passionate around a subject, use them to help you draw people through to more substantive accredited programs and MOOCs. And that conversation can continue once they've got through all your formal content. With transitions, they launched a MOOC for ophthalmic and eye care professionals as a marketing tool. So they had subject matter expertise they could give out, they could actually transmit it out externally. And they're investing in customers' education for loyalty and advocacy. So what they did there is develop a portal for eye care professionals throughout EMEA in 12 different languages where they could come and do modules on eye care health for their customers and build up an accredited program like a mini MOOC as a way in which people would then go and upsell transitions lenses. So great. And then with the IPA, all of their certification and accreditation programs are online in Pathway. Every single one of them, from short courses through to their postgraduate level programs. I think I'm going to run out of time, unfortunately, to give you a live demo because we had to start a little bit later. But for something like a basic course, I have here on appraisals, I have all sorts of different content. I've got e-learning, I've got scenarios, I've got videos, I've got e-books, I've got assignments, I've got discussions, all happening in a very, very clean, simple user interface. So people can get through, they understand how the formal learning works, there's no uptime, but they're able to start to discuss things. Equally, for more substantive programs, you can have people electing content. You can have people filtering content depending on their level of expertise. They can take a diagnostic and be delivered only the learning that's relevant to them at that point. So for example, with a MOOC, it may be, I'm interested in this level of content, but then I'd like to move on to that unit. Well, you can take a little quiz. You can take a diagnostic and you can be delivered the learning that you want to experience. If I've got a little bit of time, I'm going to do a really sneaky demo if they'll let me go over for a couple of minutes. So let me see if they'll let me get away with it. If I go live into the IPA, here we go here. So I'm live on here at the moment. If I can find my mouse again, where's that gone? There it is. Let me show you. It's just an example, a little idea for you here. This program is essentially a mini MOOC delivered by one of the leading commercial lawyers in the UK for the IPA on legal regulations. So it's an accreditation program that all middle account managers in advertising and media have to do. And what I'm able to do is I'm breaking down all of these concepts into a whole different range of learning experiences, but they also include scenarios, they also include discussions, and I can go and have a chat with my other people on my cohort to do that. But you know what? If I think that I know everything there is to know about copyright already and I want to leap to the next part of my academy program, I can do. I can filter it depending on my knowledge level, and I can take a diagnostic to do that. So we've got the ability to choose the level of content that I want. But when this has been and gone, people are still coming back here to come on to the discussions. You could integrate with something like Yammer, where you could have a legal regulations community that's living and breathing outside of your MOOC or your online academy. You can have a mobile companion that gives you the headlines. So when I'm really pitching for that big advertising piece of work with PepsiCo, and I go in and say, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to use David Beckham to do this, that, and the other. I can go on my mobile and think, right, what I mustn't do is use David Beckham doing that or doing that or doing that. That I have the content, the performance support content I need, substantive academy or MOOC level content in a platform that's easy to understand, and I can filter it because I'm an adult and there are some things I know and some things that I need to know that I don't know yet. So I'm glad I've had the opportunity just to very quickly show you what a nice clean learning environment can look like that's just like any other web experience that you'll have. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to let the learning and the content speak for itself. It doesn't have to be gimmicky, it doesn't have to be gilding the lily. It's creating the scaffold by which you've got a hell of a lot of activity happening here. You've got good conversations happening in your organisation. Because this is the springboard to learning. Learning happens out there with people creating new innovation, new products, new ideas for you. So if complex subjects are something that you are interested in, something that you're looking to launch very, very soon, I'm going to go back to my presentation quickly, as well as obviously we're behind you on stand 30. I'm also running more of a a kind of a subject matter expertise. I'll leap past this one. Just a brain dump from me on the state of academies and MOOCs. No sales, I promise you. On our next Willow webinar on the 25th of June at 10 a.m. Pop onto our website, register for free. We'll be talking about online academies there and some lessons learned, how you essentially go from design right through to launch and sustaining online academies. So if you like anything that you've seen, if you'd like more of a demo, if you've got a particular subject that you're trying to grapple with, that you just like some ideas and a friendly chat about, come and see us on Stand 30, come along to our webinar next week, and thank you so much for staying with me because we were late starting. So thank you very, very much for your time.